Black Myth Wukong, the new game on the block, breaking records, leaving Elden Rings and other titles in the genre in the dust with over 4.5 million copies at launch. But now look guys, ignoring all the chatter about woke and not woke, look, if that's what's forming your opinion on the game and it's all this argument about woke and not woke, look, it's just a game. You might as well leave your dislike and get off. And for everyone else, is it good or is it not? Let's get right into it. I played over 15 hours of Black Myth Wukong, and after that, this is my honest review. I'm not affiliated with this company, and I'm just being an honest gamer like you. And the main question on everyone's mind, is it a good game? I'm gonna open up with saying I believe that the game has a little bit of overhypedness, which raised my expectations very, very high, and then because it wasn't delivered to me the way I was imagining, it fell a little bit short of what I expected. Does that mean it's a bad game? No, it has a lot of great aspects, but there's also things that make it not entirely worth the $60 price tag on it. First things first, the game download file is like 120 gigs. I've literally talked about this in one of my last videos saying that gaming companies need to actually be realistic. Not everyone has that much storage. So if someone had to choose between buying and playing Wukong or keeping all their favorite games that they already know that they love on their device, they might not buy Wukong because they have to delete and download. So the file size being that big wasn't the greatest thing, but for me personally, because I have so much space, it wasn't too bad of a problem. And I also bought it on pre-release so I could download it the day before to have it preloaded. Black Myth Wukong is being coined a visually stunning masterpiece, and is that true? Yes, it is true, but it's not true to the extent that some people are pushing it to. On launch, the cutscenes are very, very visually pleasing, and I'm telling you now, the freaking intro cutscene was crazy. It actually blew my mind because we don't normally get things like that anymore, and it was just so action-packed and quick. It just made the experience a lot more hectic and enjoyable. But now, there was nothing crazy that we haven't seen before, but just the way it was done and being the fact that that was the first thing you were introduced to made it very, very pleasing and very, very exciting. But now, when we talk about the in-game quality, I have a few things to say. When I started, I ran the benchmark tool and I was hitting around 80 to 100 FPS, and the 80s being my low, also while I was streaming. So off stream, I was kind of hitting the hundreds and above. That was on the in-game benchmark that they gave us. So it was like, that's what the game is going to be running like. So if the game's going to be running like that and you guys are giving me a benchmark tool and it's saying I'm getting over 100 frames, then I should be good, right? Even on very high settings. So as you do, when you're getting that much frames, you put your settings on very high, yet things still felt grainy. So even with all my settings on very high, there was a few things that just seemed very grainy. But don't get me wrong, a lot of structures and most structures were very high resolution, but there was a few things that I was just like, come on, you can't make everything else high res and then make some of the stuff low res. It just doesn't look right. Like for instance, there were some stones and plants that were just very, very low poly, and the textures seemed very stretched, and nothing was too degrading that would just made the game terrible and ugly. No, but some of the stuff was just kind of like, you can't give me all these visually stunning things and then add these really low poly rocks and all these stretched textures here and there and all the objects around the world as well. It's like you could have put a little bit more thought into making them look a little bit better, like all the breakables. I've seen a lot of people complaining about the hair textures, but I don't see it. It's not worse than any other games, and it's not better than any other games we have right now. So why are people so complacent about it? It does what it's meant to do, and with all the kind of terrain movement and things, you don't really have time to focus on it too much. So people saying, oh, the hair looks so bad, it actually doesn't look that bad. Like I tried to zoom up on it as much as I could, and it just looks like every normal game that comes out as a AAA game. The instance maps were nothing special, not too much to explore, which was kind of a letdown for me because I do like exploring the maps and things, but everything kind of seemed like it was just a 100% set path and you couldn't really go off that track. But they were kind of big enough, I'd say. You could spend 5 minutes looking throughout the smaller ones and around 10 minutes looking around the bigger ones. But then one thing I did find that kind of really annoyed me was the invisible walls. Sometimes you'd see an opening or a doorway that you want to go through and you just get hit by an invisible wall. At least let us explore these things. You could just extend them just a little bit to give us access to just, go around and look what's behind that door. But the fact that you could see all these things and then when you enter them, it's just boom, you're in an invisible wall. It kind of took it down for me. It kind of made me remember, oh, I'm actually just playing a game and not everything is accessible like it would be in real life. So that did break the immersiveness for me just a little bit, but it was nothing too major. And now, apart from those nitpicks, the performance and visuals were okay. The only notable issues was there was stuttering here and there. Like sometimes you just have these stutters or these points where you hit super low frames and everything is like slow motion for like 2 seconds and you're back right up and everything is okay again. It did get annoying when you're doing bosses and everything slows down and then goes right back up and then now you're dead. But apart from that, it was okay. I do see a lot of people saying that if you're using AMD GPUs, you're screwed. And others are saying that if they're using AMD chipsets, they're also screwed. But I'm literally using a 5500 with an RTX 4060 and I ran it pretty smoothly on very high, ran into no problems. I did not crash once. So are these people lying about their specs and just trying to make the game look bad and look like it doesn't run on your machine? It runs on my machine. My machine literally ran it and I had no problems, didn't crash. So I just think some people might be lying about their specs or over exaggerating their specs because it doesn't make sense to me. And now the gameplay, it's quite regular, so there's not too much to complain on there. Combat is nice, it's nothing crazy, but it's something I would have expected from everything else. But the one thing I have to say is I would have liked to see a variety of weapons. Maybe this would be the case later on in the game because I only wanted to do a review after enough hours for me to get a feel of the game, but not enough to ruin the game because it is a story game. I want you guys to play it if you want to, and I'll get it ruined by all the clips I put in here. If they did add a variety of weapons, it might not be too lore accurate because you're Wukong. Bro uses a staff that extends and things like it is what it is. But if you're someone like me who would never choose the spear or the staff option in any game you play, then you're gonna have a little bit of an issue because it took me a little bit to get used to it, but after that it kind of felt okay. The mobs in the zones do have very similar patterns but aren't as stupid as some other games. So the mobs, yes, they are kind of like similar, and once you go to an area, a lot of them have the same movesets, but each map brings you new movesets, so it's not like too terrible, and the AI is not as stupid as some games out there. Some games the AI is just cooked. This is kind of okay. They kind of did it well, so I can't even complain about that. The bosses are kind of hit and miss. Some of the mini bosses seem like they were harder than the main bosses. Like I would spend 20 tries trying to fight a mini boss, then I get to the main boss and I defeat it first time round, which kind of made it a little bit weird to me, especially early game. I would think that everything should be around the same progression level, and then later on in the game, that's where like optional bosses become very hard or whatnot to make it kind of give you a disparity between the difficulty of the game and if you want to do something or if you don't want to do something. But the fact that I was doing mini bosses and I was getting wrecked, then I was doing the main bosses and I was flying through it at the very start of the game kind of checked my brain out a little bit, and I was like, what's going on? Why am I having this much problems? Then I'm defeating the real boss, like it doesn't make sense. But who knows, that might be intentional, I'm not sure, but I just felt it was a little bit weird to me as a player playing it for the first time. But the bosses did start getting harder and it was tough. I'm not gonna lie to you, it was tough. Most people would be annoyed by how tough it was because it's kind of getting close to a Souls game, but it was kind of fun because every time you lost, you'd be able to say, okay, I made this much mistakes, or I made that mistake, oh, I saw what I did there wrong. And every time you died, you just wanted to go back in to try to defeat the boss. Then you end up making another mistake that costs you the fight, and you have to go back in and try to not make any mistakes. So it was kind of fun, and I died a lot, but it wasn't too bad, and I wasn't too upset about that. Some people are going to complain about the difficulty and try to say, oh, make it easier. Don't make it easier. It's okay. Leave it the way it is. But the one thing about the bosses that I would have liked to see differently was maybe having a ghost option where after you defeat a boss, one of the main bosses, you could come back and repeatedly fight it and just be like a ghost option of it. Because after you defeat the bosses, the replay value of each zone goes way down. So let's say you like the zone very much and then you defeated the boss. When you go back, the only thing that's going to be there is the mobs. Once you've done that zone, there's not much of drive to go back and play it again. So if they added something like a ghost version of the bosses, and if you defeated them, you got 1,000 will or something. And also in the regular gameplay, I felt like a map or a proper journal would have been very handy. Sometimes I honestly didn't know what to do or where I was going, and I was kind of had to spend a lot of extra time figuring out because I go to my journal and it only has portraits and things, and I'm like, hey man, what's my mission objective? Can you please tell me what I gotta do? So having something that kind of indicates what you have to do kind of makes it a little bit easier where you don't have to literally keep thinking and remembering everything that's been said in the game. Because if you miss a cutscene because the cutscene started, you went to the washroom or you picked up your phone, you're done. You don't know what's happening. And without a journal, it kind of made it very hard and I had to spend a lot of time, as I said. So having a journal or a map that kind of gives you objective points that you could go visit on the map would make that a lot better. So even if you break away for a second, you can always come back and kind of figure out what you have to do without having to spend a whole 2 hours looking around the region. And now the story. Everything about the gameplay is okay, but then the story was one of the biggest aspects that I saw as something that was gonna draw me in because it was just had so much potential. And I'm a person who likes folklore and just traditional stories and things about around the whole world because it's very entertaining and it's very enlightening to see how cultures have developed around those stories. And that being said, the story kind of let me down, but it wasn't as bad as some people are saying, because a lot of people are saying the story is just boring. In my opinion, it's not. It's only boring if you look at it as the whole game as a whole and whole collective is one story. Every single instance and every single chapter is its own very unique story. And a lot of people are just muddling it all together and saying, this is so disconnected, yada yada. No, it shouldn't be like that. If you're looking at it as one story, yes, it's gonna seem very odd to you. I don't believe it's supposed to be one story. I believe everything is supposed to be their own breakaway story. And if you look at it like that, it makes sense. It makes you think, okay, wow, this is how this region was built, and this is why it was built like this, and this is the story behind this temple, and it just made a lot of sense. And I really liked the way after you defeated the boss, you kind of got these cutscenes that let you know how the story develops to the point you're at, where they all became yogais and how everything happened, which was really, really interesting to watch. And I loved the art style as well. And it just made it like a little thing where you're finished fighting, you can take a breather, watch this video, and it's like, oh, cool, that's pretty cool. Cinematics were good, audio was good, so that was kind of lit to me. But I must mention, the initial story where we were introduced to Wukong was really, 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 really good. Then they kind of didn't explain who you were. Who was the character I was playing? Am I the reincarnation of Wukong, or am I another monkey trying to get those relics to become the next Wukong? They kind of didn't tell you who you were, what you were doing. They just said, hey, boom, you spawn in this place. Oh, you look just like him. Am I him, or do I just look like him? Who am I? Am I just a regular student trying to make it big in the world and become a Buddha? So like over time, I had to make my own decision on who this guy was and what I was doing. But I just kind of went with the fact that I am just a reincarnation trying to get my stuff back to become a Buddha so I can go get revenge on the bro who killed me at the start of the game. The only other things that I can kind of pull apart is the healing mechanic. It's a little bit flawed. The delay is very weird, and I kept kind of like double mashing it. Like I pressed it one time, nothing happened. So I pressed it again, then I ended up doing it twice. So it's kind of a little bit odd there, but it's something that I could kind of get over as I went along because I had more uses out of my god. So it's kind of like, okay, but it kind of is weird, and they kind of need to fix that a little bit. And also the camera. The camera in this game is very bad. I can't look, guys, I can't say anything else. The camera in this game is actually dog. It's actually very bad. And I mean, I can't even track bosses. Even if you lock on a boss, because their moves are so sporadic, if they go out of the screen, you're kind of just locked. And if you forget that, oh, I need to actually re-click to click out and click back in, you're screwed because you can't even see around you. And it got me to the point where I literally had to play claw. I literally just had to play claw to be able to have my analog moving and also be able to like track the bosses. And the thing is, normally you would play mouse and keyboard, but they prompt you at the start of it to say, hey, the game is better if you use controller because you get the vibrations and things. And I was like, oh, okay. And I started playing on controller, and now it's like, what just happened? I'm too far in to start again on mouse and keyboard. So if you're looking at it, you kind of want to pick the best option to kind of help you mitigate that, because the camera does not track. Like if I am walking forward or I'm walking against the camera, it should probably slowly start panning so I'm center again and the camera's behind me. Not super fast, but something slow, so it kind of also tracks what you're looking at in the game, because most of the time, if my character is looking straight, I want to be looking at what I'm looking at. So that would actually be a really, really big help. I hope they add it in the future of the game, but for now, it's kind of a thing that let me down. So now, when we talk about it, as a $60 release, is it worth that? No, I don't see the value I got so far from the game for $60. I would say roughly around the 40, 45 mark would have been something where I'll be like, yeah, arguably it's good enough. If I was to give this game a rating out of 10, would I put it at a 10 out of 10 like some people are saying? No, not really. I give it a 6 or a 7 out of 10. It has its own uniqueness, but it's done nothing that stands out or changes the landscape of the genre. So in my opinion, it is a good game. It's not worth the 60, but it's still a good game. And I feel like for me personally, a lot of overhyping is what killed it for me a bit, because I had such high expectations and those just weren't met. And it's not the game's fault. And a lot of people are kind of overhyping the game based on this whole ideology of woke versus not woke. If you even look at the reviews in the games, there's a lot of reviews that have nothing about the game, just disregard humanity and go monkey or whatever. Like, you're going to kill the game because you're actually just coming on here for an ideology that doesn't make sense. It is a game. We treat it as a game. We look at it as a game, and you can't keep pushing false narratives to try fit this battle of yours when it's just a game. Is it good or is it not? In my opinion, yes, it is a good game, but it's not entirely worth that price tag. But that is just my review. You guys need to kind of check it out yourself, watch videos on it and see if you'd like it. Would I buy it if it was on sale? 100%. If it was on sale for like $40, yeah, I'm buying it. But right now, with all the little bugs and things they have, especially if you have a lower end PC that can't run it yet because it's not very well optimized across the board. Yeah, you might want to sit back a little bit, either wait for it to go down or wait for them to say, hey, we fixed all those problems you guys were talking about. Then you can kind of invest in it. I do think the game has roughly up to 100 hours of gameplay. So if you're looking for something that gives you like around 100 hours of gameplay, I do think so. If you're looking at a game that you think, oh, I can play over and over again, will it be that interesting to do so? I do not see it yet. I feel like once you've played it the first time through, you might not want to play it again, and it might be a thing that's like you seal it up and you put it behind you on a chest and say, yep, I've completed that. But yeah, that's my personal opinion. But at the end of the day, you shouldn't let people's personal opinions ruin the game for you. So go out, try it out. But that's just me. That's my opinion. Don't forget, guys, below in the comments, let me know all your opinions. Do you think it's a great game? Do you think it changed the landscape of gaming? Do you think it lived up to the hype that was given for it? Or do you think it kind of fell a little bit below? Let me know all your thoughts below. Don't forget, if you're new here and you like my reviews and you like my opinions, I just speak my facts, guys. I don't really care about what anyone says. This is what I just speak my facts, right? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next review. Make sure to check out more of my content. I do a lot of other content, so yeah, I'll see you guys on the next one.